I find out that the deposit is in the valleys, there are hills all over, I cannot relocate the deposit. It will be there. And so you, the mine planning team or the mining team, will have to find the best way possible for us to mine and make profit. Then the characteristics of the deposit are that if it contains sulfur or oxides or whatever chemicals are involved in the mineral, you cannot change these features. They become the restricting factors that accompany the mineral or the deposit, which you must find a way as our planner or as our designer or as our manager to help us mine and make money. The location, which I've talked about, the market prices of the mineral. If you check the market, the trend, how much gold price is, how much silver cost, how much iron cost per ton or whatever. You know these parameters and you have to plan with that. How will you plan for us to make money? That is also a factor you have to consider. Then, and the limit imposed by safety. So you've seen a deposit, the rock is not all that strong. And since it is not strong, you are imposed by safety to make sure your angles are a bit flatter. And remember, when your angles are flatter, the more waste you are always going to exhume from the earth to achieve a small tonnage of ore, which means you are spending more on hauling waste. But then this, because they are regulated, some regulators are making sure you follow safety protocols. You cannot bypass this. So it is also a limitation for you. But what do? You proceed. Then the economy, fuel prices, how much you have to pay a worker per hour. All these things are factors you must consider when you are setting up a mine, which can also influence your decision. Still having maximum profit at the back of your mind. Then we have the environment. Is there a stream there? Is there a well, the source of drinking water for the people around where you want to set up your mine? Is it going to affect them? Is there a forest? How will that decision you are taking be limited by the environment, by safety, and by economy? So now the choice of mining method. What are some of the factors that will influence your decision to go for surface or to go for underground? So now we've been able to establish that all we need is to mine and make profit. That is your role as a mining engineer after this program. Then you have gotten all this information, but then which one do you go for, surface or underground? So we are looking at the shape of the ore body, how the ore body is in the earth crust. Each shape, the orientation, is it heading north? Is it heading south? Is it to the west or to the east? If you pick your compass to measure these things. Then we have the continuity. Continuity here is kind of trying to talk about, there are some deposits based on this volcano eruptions and all the volcanic eruptions and all that. Some of these deposits were actually formed from magma and whatnot. And there have been some faulting and all those sort of things. And so if the deposit, you may find out from your exploration that the deposit was like this. Then along the line, you see something of this nature. They are scattered like that within the earth crust. So continuity here is trying to tell us how is the trend of the deposit within the earth crust, which you don't have all that full information. So the geologist there will let you understand that these things are bound to change. So when they give you that prior information, it's kind of like prediction. So how how is the deposit going to continue? Maybe you mine up to, they tell you that, oh, it extends 500 meters. Then, no, you mine up to 400, and that's the end. Meanwhile, you also planned with your 500. What happens to the 100? Then we have the depth, how deep it is. We have the ore grade. The grade here is referring to the value of the mineral of interest, the value of it when you mine a given quantity of material. So you realize that when you are working in a mine, you deal with rocks. You don't see that this is gold, but they tell you that the gold you are looking for is in this rock, and that material is what we term as the deposit, the mineral deposit. And so when you go and fetch that material and process, you get a particular quality of gold or mineral in it. So what or how much of that is present when you mine a particular quantity of that rock material is what we usually will term as the grade. And it can be low, it can be high. And that is why some companies have got colors to code them. So they have red board. When it is red, it is high grade. When it is orange, it is medium grade. When it is yellow, it is low grade. When it is blue, yempe is bola. And waste, take it elsewhere to the waste dump. So these are some of the information you would get when dealing with this. Then the next thing we have is the depth of the overburden. So the depth of overburden here is trying to tell us about when we have our surface and we have the deposit buried under, assuming surface mine we want to embark on. How thick is this waste material that is lying on our mineral of interest? How thick it is will determine my initial calculations or my initial cost. You see, if it is surface mine and my overburden is too thick, it means I will work or take a particular ton of material within a certain space of time before I can hit the mineral of interest and start making some money to pay workers. And so it means even before we start work, you did not pick me to come and be carrying overburden material for 2 months, 3 months without getting salary. So it means you, the investor, must already have some money there. Whilst I'm taking the waste for you, as soon as the moon dies, I must be paid. So it means that if you are an investor and the overburden is too thick and you are embarking on a surface mine, you already have trouble, because you will mine the waste for some time before you hit the mineral of interest and start working, getting profits or returns to pay your workers. Then we have projected the strength of the deposit, overburden, or the host rock. So if you have to take some of the samples to the lab, the geotechnical labs, and go and find out how strong these overburden, the strength, the competency of these 3 things, the overburden materials or the host rock, then the ore body itself, how strong it is. If you know the strength of it, it can help you decide what type of mining method you should go for. And if you choose a particular mining method, what type of support you should give to it. Yesterday, somebody mentioned that he has heard of a terminology called ground support. So if you know the strength of the rock, that is what helps you decide what type of support you should give when you are mining. Or if it is surface, what type of angle, how much angle you should leave with respect to your horizontal when you are deciding your benches or your overall pitch slope. Then we have projected production rate. You should be able to tell us how much you expect to mine on daily basis, weekly basis, or yearly basis, the rate at which you are going. And then we have the cost, capital cost. Capital cost here is referring to all the necessary equipment or other machinery you have to invest, which are kind of like assets that you put into the mine, which you may not necessarily have to buy them again until a long time. So that money you are bringing on board to acquire certain things to start the work are what we term as the capital cost. Then we have another thing we call operating costs. Operating costs are the things, the monies you spend on certain things which you will need on daily basis. So let us do a quick example here. So for example, assuming you want to sell ice kinky, let us do some simple example. So assuming I want to set up an ice kinky shop, okay? I want to sell ice kinky. What are some of the things that I would need to do this business? So let's say we have had enough here. So we want to define what capital cost is. So there are some things we have listed here that once we buy them, we don't need to buy them again. So if I invest money into that thing, or even before I start the business, I need money for those things. They are very essential to the business, and they sometimes they cost more because they become a property. Until the mine is no more, you don't even need to set those things up again, or unless they spoil. So the money, initial money I need to invest in that thing is what we call the capital. So for example, the fridge here, if I buy it until it spoils, I'm not going to buy again. So coming to start the business, all these things may be termed as initial capital, which I need to start the business. But some of them, you don't need them again until they spoil. So initial capital is the amount of money you need to start the business. But then as you go along, some of these things you bought as initial stays forever until they go bad. You don't buy them again. The other ones that you will need frequently all the time if you want to set up or come up with a fresh ice kinky, you will need them, will be the kinky for the ice kinky, the kinky for the ice kinky. You need the sugar, you need the needle, you will need the granules, and those things, you keep buying them frequently. And so those ones are what we call the operating cost, because you need them day by day. Have you been able to define these two? Good. So let's move on. Then we have what we call financial recovery. The financial recovery here, or the cash flow, what we are trying to talk about is financial recovery. Assuming you wanted to start this business, but you don't have money of your own. And so you decide that I've heard some microfinance is giving money for people who want to do business. So you go in there and take some money and come and start the business. So if you go for that money or that loan to start this business, at what point will you be able to pay back through this business? And so as you do this payment and finish, then you are able to recover financially. So the monies you take become a liability on you. You keep thinking about it. When will I be able to? So it's kind of like some sickness. If you collect loan for a business, it's kind of like you being sick. Until that thing is off your shoulder, you can't recover. It means your business is running on a debt